Two reporters in Ferguson, Missouri were arrested by Ferguson police. One of them is Ryan Riley. He's the justice reporter for Huffington Post. He posted this image just before being arrested on Twitter. It was SWAT just invaded McDonald's where I'm working, recharging, asked for ID when I took his photo. What happened next? Ryan now joins me on the phone. He's been released from custody, as I understand it. Ryan, are you there?
I am.
What happened?
It was madness. So originally the SWAT officers walked through, and I took a couple of photos at that time, and they talked to the manager, who then basically they decided to leave, and then they reversed course, came back, and decided that they're actually going to shut down the McDonald's, and asked everyone to leave. So they asked us to begin packing up our stuff. Evidently, I was not moving quickly enough for them to like, and and at which point I was given a countdown. I was told I had 45 seconds, 30 seconds to pack up all of my stuff and leave. At which point the officer in question, who I repeatedly later would ask for his name and was never, or his badge number was never given it, decided that he was going to help me pack, and he grabbed my things and shoved them into my bag. And I was then he then arrested me. And as he handcuffed me, put on both very tight. He used his finger to put a pressure point on my neck, and it was just a very, very difficult experience.
Did he tell you what you were under arrest for not leaving a McDonald's quickly enough?
Correct. Yes. I mean, yeah. He would not tell me what I was under arrest for.
And he was in SWAT gear.
He was in complete SWAT gear. Yes. And the most frustrating thing about this, it's going to be very difficult to hold him accountable for his actions, just because I repeatedly asked over a dozen times for his name or ID number, was never given it. It was just a terrible experience. And the worst part was he slammed my head against the glass purposefully on the way out of the McDonald's, and then sarcastically apologized for it. It was just a terrible experience, and I recognize I'm in sort of a place of privilege here, both as a journalist and as a white person, frankly, in that I was evidently, the police chief made the decision not to go ahead and hold us.
You were subsequently released. You were also with Washington Post reporter Wesley Lowery, who's been tweeting about it. He says he was slammed into a soda fountain. He was also arrested. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. And I'm not even sure, at this point, there's so much madness going on social media, I'm not sure even exactly how the fact that we got arrested was put out there. On my way out the door, I don't know if this was originally how it got out, but I shouted at one of the McDonald's employees to please, tweet the fact that we had been arrested, and gave my name. I don't know if that's actually how it got out. Did
the police know you were reporters?
After they had handcuffed me, I'm not 100% on whether or not I mentioned I was a reporter, but that really shouldn't matter sort of in this equation. I wasn't going to try to exercise a point of, they could get in trouble if I handle him poorly in the situation, just because I was like any other customer who was in the McDonald's at the time, and simply two of us did not pack up quickly enough. I believe it was because after I took the initial photos of the officer, he would not give me his. He asked for my identification, and I declined to give it to him. So I think he sort of was holding a grudge about the fact that I refused to give him identification, which was my right to do, considering that I wasn't doing anything wrong.
These police officers in full SWAT gear who entered into a private business, a McDonald's, they ordered the McDonald's closed. Did they say under what authority or what legal citation they were pulled in?
They essentially came through and said that you guys can stay here, but we can't guarantee your safety, and that was fine with us, considering that they've cleared everyone out of the entire area. It was just such a massive presence and just complete overkill, in my opinion, on the number of officers that were there, and the mentality of the officers was extremely, extremely disturbing. They essentially acted as a military force. It was just incredible, and you couldn't reason with them. You couldn't, even after I was handcuffed and then pulled out the journalist card. As far as I know, I think I hadn't mentioned it before. at that point, the officer, who was a St. Louis County officer, a white man, I'd estimate probably around 40, and he was just, he would not give me his badge number. None of the officers would give me a badge number. They forced us into a police car that was intended to be for the backseat was intended to be for 2 individuals, and it was 3 of us in there. There was 2 reporters along with a pastor who had been arrested. It was just an extremely the mentality was extremely disturbing.
Ryan Riley from the Huffington Post, arrested tonight by police in Ferguson, Missouri, subsequently released, joining us on the phone. Thank you, Ryan. Really appreciate it.
Stop videotaping. Let's grab our stuff and go.
Right to videotape you, sir?
Hurry up. Let's go.
Please don't make her go to me.
Let's go.
You see me working. Please do not tell me not to use my personal.
It's time to go.
Right?
Let's go.
Please not wave a gun at me.
We're down about 45 seconds. Let's go.
Now, is the street? Can I ask?
Let's go. Let's go.
I'm trying to
we don't have time to ask questions. Let's go.
Close. Can I move my car?
You can move your car if your car's out here. Let's go.
It is. That's what I was asking. You didn't have time to answer it?
Let's go.
Just being mean.
Let's go.
I'm working on it, sir.
Let's go. Here's the door over here. Let's go.
I'm gonna watch this.
Let's go. You can move. Let's go. Move.
Sir, please.
Let's move. Let's move.
Sir,
let's move this way. Here's the door. This way or this way?
We spent a lot of time here at the Boston Red Network trying to come up on Ferguson Today on the 14th of August 2014. There have been many developments since we started this report last night, when the 2 journalists, one from the Washington Post and one from the Huffington Post, were arrested by police officers acting as thugs in the Missouri town and suburban location of Ferguson, Missouri. The whole thing spun out of control. The governor was spineless, weak-kneed, as LBJ would say, and totally ineffective. Today he came out, did a news conference, denounced the history of the struggles in Ferguson, in effect forgetting about the past, trying to move to the first. Unfortunately for Governor Nixon, he has no idea about the impact of history. History impacts the minds and bodies of those racist thugs that were out there, in particular the ones that were on armored personnel carriers. They were from the St. Louis County Police that are under investigation for extreme profiling and bias against African Americans in the county. Now, here's what the problem is. The problem is the county attorney, which the African American community have already announced they have zero confidence in him to conduct any type of investigation unless a fair and full investigation. Enters the Justice Department and the FBI. They are there, they are coordinating, but their powers are somewhat limited unless some officers later are indicted on the denial of civil rights. But that does take a time period to do that. In the interim, the ACLU there in Missouri is suing to get the name of the thug that shot Mr. Michael Brown. That has not been disclosed. And the problem here for Nixon and the rest of his ilk, the racist business of Ferguson, Missouri has literally went from Johannesburg to Pakistan to Baghdad to Beijing to Walla Walla and points in between. The whole world knows about it and know exactly what those people are about. No amount of sweeping it under a carpet, or in this case under the streets, will alleviate his problems. You'll hear also from President Obama. He was talking about developments in Iraq, which if you look at some of the armored personnel carriers, they're the same thing. 45 caliber machine guns mounted for a crowd of less than 100 people that could have mowed them all down in a matter of minutes. Now this is where the problem lies, and this is where the problem lied under the administration of G.W. Bush in response to New Orleans. it was a law enforcement response. Law and order, that was a slogan of the National Socialist Party under their leader, Führer Adolf Hitler. This is the same thing that happened in New Orleans. They literally allowed, the difference there was, they allowed police departments from around the nation to bring their cruisers, carte blanche, and patrol. They already had National Guard from Louisiana National Guard on duty there. So the focus was not on aiding the people that lived there. It was like the episodes you used to see on TV of Tarzan and Jane. It was not about the natives, it was about Tarzan. There was not any Janes in this case. Well, this is the same thing that happened in Missouri. One racist reporter said, well, they tried the police response. That was bunk. And then they had the rioting. Well, what happened there was the police from various jurisdictions had seized off highways to the village of Ferguson. And they had called in additional people. Now, this happened at night, that they had a reaction and they had some looting and some burning. But they were able there with their law enforcement response to arrest the perpetrators. So there was no lack of law enforcement response. The Speaker, I believe, of the House there, Republican in Missouri, called for martial law. Well, martial law is the same response they had when they literally arrested a journalist, arrested an alderman out of the city of St. Louis. They arrested all these people, and what's pathetic about it is they didn't charge them with anything. They did charge other people. The councilman said some of his people had to be bailed out of jail. But they were arresting these people for exercising their rights. This has become part of a national scam where police officers charge people that are actually aiding in the process of justice with obstruction of justice, interfering with a police officer. They tried to charge the reporters for trespassing in McDonald's when they entered through a public door. And some of the protesters with noise violations. In other words, all these trivial violations, and the governor did not talk about that. And this is where he fell short, and very, very short indeed. I'm assuming he understands that with the numerous investigations going on at this period of time, the NAACP is conducting its own independent investigation. The attorneys representing the family of Michael Brown are performing a second autopsy on the body. It's been turned over to the family. They'll be investigating and getting witnesses there. So what Nixon wants, it doesn't really matter. And this is one of the unfortunate problems the Missouri law enforcement operation doesn't understand. They've been exposed as brutal racists. Same thing that happened in Selma and those places. The difference is that was in the 50s. This is 2014 and with social media. Now, we also noted today that the anonymous account was suspended on Twitter. That is suspension is just a suspension. There are millions of sites out there and other avenues for anonymous and any other organizations to take. But we understand the weakness in social media. If you look at, say, Facebook or any of these platforms, they can suspend your privilege, quote-unquote, of being there. You don't have a right to be there. You have a privilege from where they are. These are private, proprietary organizations, whether it be Facebook or be Twitter, and they cannot be relied upon to get the word out to the public. So the people on those platforms have to understand they need to set up their own platforms and alternative platforms and backup platforms is like in plan A through Z, quite literally. Because many times one shut down. This happened to the characters that were in Cairo at Tahrir Square. Their cell phone service was blocked. Their internet access was blocked. They worked around it, and of course people here will learn to work around it also. But the problem Nixon had is that the events had gotten ahead of him, and they are still ahead of him. So now he's placed the state police in charge. Got a captain named Ron Johnson to be the front man. You'll see his picture there. No doubt Johnson is a dedicated highway patrolman. There's no doubt.